South Africa's top earners are being squeezed by a 45% marginal tax rate. It's a level similar to Germany, the UK, France, China and Australia, but South Africa offers far fewer deductions and allowances, which makes that 45% feel more punishing. As a result, high earners have been looking for legitimate ways to reduce their tax burden. And today we have Mitchel Fieldgate, a wealth manager and alternative investment lead at Pangea Wealth, to explain how South Africa's renewable energy tax incentive, the Section 12B, has become a powerful tool for high-income earners. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hi, Linda. Yeah, thanks. Great to be here.
Well, I think we should start by saying, in simple terms, what is the Section 12B and why has it become so relevant?
Yes, so the Section 12B is a tax incentive from the government to invest into renewable energy. So it was made in 2016. There was an increase in 2023, but it's just an incentive. I mean, you get incentives all around the world, and it's just been amazing to see the outcome that happens when you just dangle a tax incentive in front of people. So, I mean, I think it's been a big reason why load shedding is not around anymore, because it's been an absolutely amazing outpour in capital on all these solar projects. I mean, South Africa has one of the best suns in the world, but we don't have hardly any solar. I mean, especially in the northwest, I mean, you don't get much better sun in the world. So, the Section 12B, you get 100% deduction. There's been a lot of these funds made where people can increase the deduction with the debt capital contribution. So, for example, there'd be $1 million of equity that a client would put in, and then $1 million of debt taken out. $2 million of solar is deployed, and then the client can get a $2 million deduction. So we've seen a lot of people, high income earners in South Africa, they're quite desperate to reduce their taxable income because they rightfully so get a bit frustrated when they're paying these huge tax. You earn 10 million rand, you're paying 4.5 million to SARS, and then on top of that, you still have to pay the hidden costs that come with living in South Africa. Okay, that's security. Other countries you don't have to pay for security because there's police, which your tax money should be going to. You have to pay for your own medical aid because you're not going to get any, medical assistance here. You have to pay for your own schooling if you want your kids to go and get proper education. So it's not like you pay this big tax bill and you get all these benefits. A lot of guys are quite gutful, for lack of a better word, of paying this tax, not having any ways to reduce the tax, and also then not getting anything from the tax. And I think, with this renewable energy incentive, it's just a much better transition of money instead of paying SARS, where there's so much leakage, inefficiency going to these institutions and services that you don't really, don't see any upside on. It's now going directly into these profitable energy projects. And I'm surprised. I mean, I spoke to a colleague and they said they should actually do an incentive where you get a big deduction if you invest into potholes or roads or or bridges. I mean, because then right now, if you pay tax, the money that eventually gets deployed on fixing potholes, 10 Rand gets paid in tax, and probably like 2 Rand is actually, at the end of the day, actually goes to actually fixing the problem. Where if you have an incentive and you encourage private sector participation, you can get that, you get a lot less leakage, if that makes sense.
Well, if a client comes to you and say, okay, I've heard about this, how does it work? What do you do for them?
So I think with these 12Bs, it's not one size fits all. So we'd work closely with the client. To my knowledge, I don't think any other wealth management firm has raised as much capital in the 12B side as Pangea Wealth. We've helped assist and facilitate over R1 billion in deductions just over the last 2 years. And so the client would sit with us, we'd understand the taxable income. We've got a suite of investments which we've done due diligence for. So just like on our wealth management side, where we'll put clients, let's say, with Allan Gray or BlackRock, they're not actually our funds. We're not BlackRock or Allan Gray. It's the same on the 12B side. So we're not actually holding funds, but we've done a lot of research on on behalf of a client. And we've narrowed it down from 10, 12Bs that are out there to 3 that we're very bullish on. And I think that's very valuable because these things are very complicated. There's a lot of sections. I mean, I could chat to you for another half an hour telling you about the complexities on this. You need to make sure your legals are right. You need to make sure there's diversification. You need to make sure that the projects are high quality. Okay, you can put solar on a very profitable site, but if it goes bust, then you're in trouble. So what are the margins? Who are the off-takers? What's the solvency like of off-takers? I'd much rather have a power purchase agreement with, let's say, a macro than with a local mom and pop shop. So it's all these things we consider. We've spent a lot of time in due diligence and research into making sure we've got the best of breed 12B options. And then also tailoring it to a client, saying, okay, what's your liquidity needs? When you can expect the refund? What's the refund? What's the cash flow? One option could be a lower risk option. Other one could be a higher risk option. And we backward engineer through a very bespoke cash model that we have, simulation model, where we can backward engineer to say, okay, what investment for you, Linda or whoever, would save you the most amount of tax? It's quite nuanced, and we also just make sure our investors fully understand the risks, because the last thing we want is people investing in things they don't understand or investing incorrectly. And in my experience, I think guys don't fully understand this and the risk. And I've heard some stories of people investing because a lot of these 12B funds, they just want to raise as much capital as possible. So I think we have a lot more alignment with our investors, where we if you go to Section 12B1 fund, they're going to tell you how amazing they are, and the marketing machine might be so excited to raise capital, they might not fully make the client understand the risks, and more importantly, they're definitely not going to tell them about be fund number 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think using someone like Pangea is a great value add for clients, and it's a big reason why we've been able to raise the amount of money that we've raised.
Well, are there people that should not invest in these funds?
Yes, I think that's a good question. So when you get the deduction, you can either get a refund. So if you pay as you earn, like a salaried person, you've already paid tax on your income. So you'd have to then chase the tax man to get that refund. 90% of clients, it's quite simple and straightforward, but sometimes it's not so straightforward. And with SARS, it can be a roll of the dice. I mean, you'd be surprised. You get an investor who gets a 10 mil refund within a day, and then you get a 250K refund, which takes 4 months. So I'd say people who shouldn't invest are low income earners, because a lot of the upside on this investment is quite low. It only really makes sense if with the tax benefit. And the lower your income is, the less tax you pay, so the less tax benefit. So I'd say anyone below 1.5 mil taxable income probably shouldn't be looking at this. And also, people who shouldn't invest are guys with complicated structures. So if you've got aggressive tax planning, maybe, paying your wife a salary, even though she doesn't work for you, or you're a bit aggressive on your company tax side and you don't want SARS peeking around, this is definitely going to have SARS peeking around. So I'd say low income earners, guys with complicated like trusts and businesses, you can't invest via a company. So I've seen some clients, like normally they would give themselves a bonus out of the company and then invest in their personal name. But then if you've got like 4 partners and now the one partner isn't buying into it, then the whole thing derails. So I'd say like simple, high income professionals, that's prize one. Guys who have got a big tax bill, whether that's capital gains or they've got a big tax bill now in Feb, they're the perfect client. It can work and it is valuable for the client, Linda. It's not as groundbreaking or next level or, it's going to change your life as much as perhaps I think some of these guys might advertise, but definitely for the right client let's say you've got R1 million to pay now in Feb, you can instead invest the R1 million and now you've got you got an annuity income stream. So for the right client, it's flipping. It's very, very powerful, but it's not a one size fits all. And there are risks, and I think that's the main value of using someone like us.
So what does an investor eventually end up owning in a typical 12B?
So they would own solar assets essentially, because they would get the deduction. I don't want to go too in the weeds, but you join a partnership, and that partnership then purchases assets, which are then deployed onto various off-takers' sites. So something like a macro, one of these 12B funds would say, okay, listen, you need 20 mil of solar on your roof. For some reason or another, you might not be able to pay 20 mil. So we'll pay it. We'll deploy all the solar. You must then agree to buy the electricity produced by these panels for the next 10 or 20 years. Okay, so macro in this example would be happy because now they're getting cheaper electricity and more reliable electricity than what they get from Eskom. And it's only going to be escalating at like 3-5%, as opposed to Eskom where, they can escalate it in 20% in 1 year if they want. The 12B fund is happy because now they've got an income generating asset and they get a big deduction. Okay, so that essentially what would happen. I think the 12B funds we're most bullish on is the ones with a lot of solar experience who've been doing this for a while. We saw a lot of guys come out the woodwork when this deduction was announced, and they've never done solar in their life. And and now all of a sudden they're so passionate about solar just because the tax carrot is being dangled. We'd rather deal with guys with 15, 17 years experience, who've been in this position, who've been doing solar. Because a lot of those newbies, it's almost like a perfect storm, because right now solar's a lot more difficult to get a margin on. If I got a macro, 5 years ago, I could charge them whatever I want because it was load shedding. They were just desperate to make sure they had reliable electricity. Now, the panels are much cheaper. So 20 mil 5 years ago could probably cost them 10. So they'd say, I'll just do it now. I'll just do it ourselves because it costs 10 mil to do. Also, there's not load shedding. So they're not as desperate to get solar, which means I have to charge them a lower rate to make it more compelling for them. Another thing, Linda, is if I go to them and I say, okay, I'll charge you 2 Rand per kilowatt, they say, okay, well, I've got another guy I'm speaking to who says they'll charge me 1.80 Rand per kilowatt. And then we say, okay, cool, let's do 1.70 Rand. And they say, no, okay, well, let's do 1.60 then, take it or leave it. So it's like, you don't want a newbie with no experience in this tough environment where there's lower supply and much more demand. So yeah, I think that's, but at the end of the day, they do own physical assets because you have to own that to get the deduction. It's quite specific on what the asset needs to be to get the deduction. And you also need someone who understands that, who's got the legals in place, because the last thing you want is to invest into something expecting this big deduction. And then you find out the hard way that it doesn't actually qualify for the deduction, or they don't deploy it. And then you don't get the tax saving you were promised. And we've seen guys like clients, if I promise you're going to get a mil refund and you only get 400K, you're not going to be very happy with me. So we're quite particular on who we deal with. And we are very happy with the 3 12B guys we have on board this year.
So do people ask you this, is this a loophole, or, are you sure this is legal? Do you get this question?
Yes. Yeah, I think, and that's a good one because I'm the alt lead. So I've been in here before. We've got a big client base, and our biggest risk was telling our investors they're going to get this big deduction and then it doesn't happen. So, if these deductions, we've got our family, our friends, our clients who have tens of millions or even hundreds in some cases. And there's a big risk that if this deduction didn't go through, that it would really impact us. Like I'll probably have to move to Australia if the tax didn't go through. But to answer your question, it's not a loophole. SARS, if they didn't want the deduction or the incentive, they could get rid of it in a day. Okay, so these solar deductions aren't new. If anything, they're quite tame. Around the world, they're much more profitable, or they're much more higher. So it's not a loophole. They want us to invest into solar. That's exactly what we're doing. Consequently, companies have more reliable electricity, greener electricity. The country runs better. GDP is growing. There's less load shedding. So by and large, and I'm sure the ANC, that's one of the things going for them is that they kind of they fix load shedding. And that in large part is due to this incentive. So every year we're checking if it does get removed. But as it stands, it's still part of the Tax Act, and it's still going to be part next year as well. But yeah, we can just take it year by year. But we don't know how much longer it's going to take. We haven't had any client who's been rejected the deduction, or if they do, we have an objection. As I said, 90% is smooth sailing, but the 10% can be quite tough. But at the end of the day, even with all the teething issues that comes with dealing with SARS, we still do get an outcome for our clients. And that's another benefit with Pangea is we really do assist you and your accountants in having the right docs, working with SARS, speaking with them, and helping ensure that you get an outcome.
So how should the 12B fit into someone's broader long-term financial plan?
So the dream scenario is someone who is a bit older, who's in need of the income. Because now, let's say I've sold my business and I've got 10 mil to pay to SARS. I could then invest into a 12B and now earn an annuity income. So I would, instead of paying SARS 10 mil, I would invest 10 mil and not have to pay SARS anything as per Section 12B. And now I would earn, let's say, 600,000 Rand annuity income. Because I'm not working anymore, I would get taxed on that at a lower rate. And that 600,000 Rand annuity income, if I just paid SARS, it would have, I'm earning zero annuity income. So it's just like a passive income stream. We've built income streams for clients fully funded by their tax of north of like 2 million Rand. So now the rich get richer, They had this huge tax bill, and now they're earning 2 mil, which is what like managing directors earn or chartered accountants earn. So I think when it works extremely well, because now you've got this income for the next 20 years, and it's fully funded by SARS, by the money that you owed SARS. So yeah, I think just for high income earners, a lot of the times, especially pay-as-you-earn guys, they don't have tools to really lower their tax. For me, I've got my position set up where in wealth management you can expense a bit. I can go to Cape Town and expense that. Where if a high income earner has to pay 10,000 Rand for a holiday, they have to earn 19,000 Rand. Tools like doctors and advocates, there's only so much like stationery and laptops and things that you can expense, but there's no tools that they have to actually lower their taxable income besides like a RA. The RA is capped at 350K, and where this is uncapped. So a lot of clients have been really excited, especially once they have certainty on the tax saving. And this is my 4th year doing it, so there's no doubt that the tax saving works. But yeah, clients have been very optimistic in chasing us to get this big tax deduction, because as I said, we don't know how much longer it's going to last. It could be gone next year, or hopefully it's never gone. And also each year it has to be a new product, Linda. So it's not like you just roll it over into, like I might have a 12B fund from last year, but those are from old projects. Each year they have to have a new set of projects because you can't claim the deduction on the same asset. So each year, as I said, the returns are also lowering because this year macro might accept 1.60 Rand per kilowatt, but next year they might only accept 1.50 Rand. So at some point, yeah, it's just getting squeezed out. For the right client, it's a phenomenal product where you get a huge tax deduction And it's a big reason why a lot of these funds are already full, because you can only accept money when there are projects available. We would prefer, for clients to get on board during the year, but you know how it goes. No one thinks about tax until it's the last week of February, and at that point it's usually too late. I mean, we had 50 million rand last year we had to turn away because there just wasn't enough space. So I would say, if your listeners do have a big tax bill, they are looking for someone to assist them in this complex environment, and there is still a bit of space available via Pangea, not much, then yeah, feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to assist them.
It seems we need something similar for water now.
Yes, no, it's true. I mean, they did one on, I don't know if you know this, on electric vehicles. So you get 150% deduction on if you manufacture electric vehicles. I'm not as confident that we could take on China, or that seems a lot more high risk than a solar project. But yeah, you're right. If I was the government, I would do like one on water or the roads, because it just mobilizes money and there's no leakage. So it's really, when it works well, it's a phenomenal thing. And I really hope they would do more of these things.
Mitchel Fieldgate, thank you so much.